Hi friends, I'm Michelle Fondin and I'm the author of Help, I Think My Loved One is an Alcoholic, a survival guide for lovers, family, and friends. Today I'm going to speak about anger in early recovery, what to expect, and what to do when your alcoholic loved one in early recovery becomes angry and upset. Your expectations about your loved one in early recovery may be very, very high. And I know this from experience. I know that when my alcoholic loved one entered into recovery, I expected miracles. And that's the way I approached it. I thought, wow, it's the alcohol that is causing all of this turmoil, all of these negative emotions, and all of this negative behavior. Therefore, as soon as my alcoholic enters recovery, it's going to be great. He's going to act completely different. Once you take away that element of alcohol, it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be flowers in the meadow. Everything's going to smell, taste. Everything's going to be wonderful. And that's really not the way it went down, and that's not the way it usually goes. So let's look at anger as an emotion. Anger is usually a reactionary emotion to the underlying feeling of fear. When you feel fearful and you fear that things are not going your way, that your basic physical and emotional needs aren't being met, oftentimes you will respond with anger. Let's look at the child. So a child really doesn't know how to deal with emotions and feelings, nor do they know how to really go about getting their needs met. Therefore, if a caretaker does not respond favorably to a child wanting something, they will usually throw a temper tantrum, or they will usually get angry and frustrated and upset and pound their fists on the table, kick their feet, and throw things such as toys or their food even. That's because their emotional intelligence is not yet developed, and so they really don't know how to deal with feelings, problems, and conflict. Now let's fast forward this to an alcoholic. To your alcoholic, the only way that he or she has been able to deal with emotions and feelings is through the object of alcohol or drugs. And I add drugs to this picture because in most alcoholic story, drugs is very much a part of the alcoholism. They tend to look for more effect in the drinking, and therefore they seek out drugs as well. So there is often two parts to this story. So it's the drinking and it's drug use. They have used the drinking, they have used the alcohol and other substances as a way to pacify the feelings that they have had inside, most especially those negative feelings that they've had inside. Now you take away this coping mechanism, and what are you left with? The feelings and emotions that have been masked throughout the years. I can assure you, this was super hard for me to understand. So you take away their trusted friend, you take away this crutch, you take away this coping mechanism, you put it aside, you push it aside, and you say, guess what? You can't have that anymore. And so what ends up happening is they have to start dealing with life on life's terms. And that is a common phrase used in Alcoholics Anonymous. It's dealing with life on life's terms. Your alcoholic loved one is not used to dealing with life on life's terms. They're also not used to feelings and actually feeling those feelings inside. And that knowing that all of us experience positive feelings and negative feelings at any given moment. And even in the same moment, you could experience positive and negative feelings. And so a feeling is an emotion that is felt within the body, and it can generate some sort of reaction. So if you're really happy, you might want to jump for joy or smile or laugh or respond physically in some way. If you're feeling sad, you might shrug your shoulders down, slump over your shoulders and put your head down, drop your head and frown. So it's those feelings that you feel inside of you that have some sort of physical manifestation. And it might be mental, and it might be mental and physical. So now the alcoholic is really not sure how to interpret what he or she is feeling inside in sobriety. The easiest reaction for them is the reaction of anger. That is the easiest. Because when you're angry, you can shut everybody else down, and you really don't have to deal with the emotion. It's a very immature way. I will emphasize that. It's a very immature way of dealing with feelings and emotions. Just as the child who throws himself down on the floor and throws a temper tantrum. It's really immature. But that being said, your alcoholic loved one oftentimes doesn't know anything else. They don't know how to effectively navigate through feelings and emotions. One thing that you can do as someone who loves an alcoholic, who is in early sobriety and who doesn't know how to respond with an emotion, feeling, or a response other than anger, is to ignore the angry behavior. Okay, now this is an effective way because the more you give attention to a negative emotion, a negative feeling, the more you give attention to a negative behavior, in this sense, is giving credence to it. So the same could be applied to a child throwing a temper tantrum. You don't necessarily want to ignore the child, but you want to ignore the child while he or she is having the temper tantrum, because you want to send a message that that temper tantrum is not an okay way to respond to the emotions that you're feeling inside of you. So you can say something to the effect of, when you're ready to have a talk and use your words about what you're feeling inside, and you're ready to stop this temper tantrum, I'll be right over there. You can come to me when you're ready. And you leave the situation, you leave the room, you leave the area where that child is having the temper tantrum. In the same way, when your alcoholic is having his adult temper tantrum, spouting off anger and getting frustrated and getting all bent out of shape, you can do the exact same thing. So you can say, okay, it sounds like you're not handling this situation well. When you're ready to talk things through calmly, I'll be right over there, and you can come to me when you're ready. And just let it go. Let it be what it is. Your alcoholic loved one may not even have words to express what he or she is feeling inside. Your alcoholic loved one maybe has never learned feeling words, and maybe you've never learned feeling words. Feeling words are not necessarily in our current vocabulary. It's not something we've grown up with. So we might think of like happy, sad, joyful, fearful, all of that, but there are many other words to express feelings, to express emotions. So you can think of frustrated or disturbed or distraught. Think of many other words that you can apply to feelings and emotions and help your alcoholic loved one. Another thing you can do when your alcoholic loved one is experiencing anger in early sobriety, and remember, we're talking about sober behavior. We're not talking about alcoholic behavior. Now, it's going to mirror alcoholic behavior, but an alcoholic behavior is when the alcoholic is consuming alcohol and they become very irrational, and they may display some of the same behaviors as when they're sober, but it's very difficult to talk to someone who is under the influence of alcohol or drugs, and you almost never want to do that because it seems to always cause more problems. We're talking about sober. We're talking about when your alcoholic is trying to get sober and clean and in recovery, attending AA meetings after rehab detox, working with a sponsor, going to therapy, all of these tools that he's going to eventually have in his back pocket in order to effectively manage life on life's terms. Another thing you can do is offer your alcoholic loved one feelings and emotions that he or she may not be aware of. For example, something happens. He's trying to get his license renewed at the DMV or the Department of Motor Vehicles. I know in each state it's slightly different. He's trying to get his license renewed and he's having a very difficult time of it. Or maybe there was a past charge such as a DUI or DWI or a license suspension. And he has gone to this government bureau and the lines are long and he's lacking a piece of paper and he gets angry and frustrated and starts yelling and shouting and screaming. So you could offer your alcoholic loved one words that he or she may not be able to express. You could say something like, I know you're feeling really frustrated and it's maddening to have to wait in line and then realize that you're missing some papers. I can understand that frustration. I can understand that anger and in knowing that your time has been wasted. And so what you're doing is you're acknowledging what has happened and you're acknowledging the feelings inside. The feelings of maybe helplessness, the feelings of frustration, the feeling of discontent. And you're giving your alcoholic loved one words that help describe that situation. You're not telling him how he's feeling. You're not telling her how she's feeling. You're just offering up words because in order to be able to process the emotions, it's often necessary to have the words to express that. And your alcoholic loved one just may not have the words yet to be able to express that. Once those feelings are acknowledged, with words, oftentimes you'll notice that the anger will dissipate. The anger will just gently, slowly go away because you've allowed the person to have those feelings, and no feeling is wrong. Feelings are feelings, and feelings come and go, and no feeling is wrong. It's what you do with those feelings and emotions that make all the difference. Last but not least, let's talk about your anger. You've surely been hurt in your relationship with your alcoholic loved one. I know I was deeply hurt. And we can't always control the past. We can't control what has happened, but we can move forward from it. So getting in touch with your own feelings and emotions about what happened in the past, words that were said, scenarios, things that disappointed you. There are many ways in which you can deal with your own anger. One method is journaling. One method is prayer. One method is seeing a therapist on your own and going to al-anon meetings, attending other 12-step group meetings, and really learning how to effectively manage and deal with your own emotions of anger and giving words to yourself as well. And allowing yourself to feel the feelings of anger and ask yourself, what are the underlying feelings in these feelings of anger? What are the underlying feelings here? And really going into deep exploration on what needs weren't being met at the time that my alcoholic loved one were drinking that I really missed the mark. Like I needed those needs to be fulfilled and I was looking for it in someone who was unhealthy and someone who was clinically insane, really. And maybe the situation wasn't your fault, such as growing up with an alcoholic parent and you did not choose consciously to be in that situation. I really believe there are no mistakes. I believe from a spiritual standpoint that we all choose parents before we come into this earthly plane, that we choose to learn lessons in life. And the idea is to learn the lesson, get that lesson and move forward, move on with your life. And so really looking for the lessons here and learning forgiveness. Forgiveness is a big part about dissipating that anger. Wishing you many, many blessings. I love teaching you about living with an alcoholic loved one, living with a sober alcoholic. And if you love these videos, please support me in the way of you could buy a copy of the book. I have it on Audible, Kindle, and hard copy. You can also support me on Patreon going to www.patreon.com/Michelle S. Fondin. If you have any comments, suggestions, please subscribe to my channel and I look forward to seeing you. Many blessings.